How are you at sharing your feelings? Frankly, I'm not that good at it. Honestly, I've got a very narrow emotional bandwidth, and by that I mean I'm a pretty steady guy. So when things are great, I don't feel a whole lot different than when things aren't so great. I mean, fundamentally I don't, and I'm sure I'm stifled somewhat in that area. But what I've learned over time is that learning to understand and share feelings are really important, particularly in conflict resolution, because so much of it is about feelings. Don't yell, don't scream, don't put a bullhorn up to someone's ear. Instead, learn to share your feelings appropriately. My wife will often ask me how I feel, and here's my response. Fine. I actually make it a question because I'm never quite sure. And she will say, well, honey, that's a great way to define sandpaper, but not a great way to define emotions. There's a lot more to life than that. And what I've learned over time is I need to be able to identify what I'm feeling. You know, often when men, particularly, and by the way, I think men struggle with sharing feelings even more than women, who tend to have more of a emotional competency and ability, a portfolio to understand themselves than many men. And certainly that'd be true in my case. And so the difficulty we can have is that we need to learn how we're feeling about things and then be able to articulate it to the people around us when we're dealing with a conflict. So when Mary says, how am I doing? And I say, I'm fine. I just don't know how to share feelings all that well. But I've learned over time again that as I dig deeper, as I go deeper, I can actually start to communicate my feelings. Well, what you want to do in conflict resolution is determine really what's your feeling behind it. I met with a couple of my professors when I was a president of a graduate school some years ago. They were having a conflict, and they were angry at one another. They were getting a little bitter toward one another. They weren't talking. And I sat them down and I said, what's the issue? And one talked about their office. The other person talked about some activity at work or their job differences. And I said, go deeper than that. And so we talked further, and finally what came out is they both concluded that they were not feeling respect from the other person, that they weren't feeling appreciated and respected. And again, men more often than not will struggle with a lack of respect, and we're feeling hurt. That's what we're feeling. But it's hard to admit that because it doesn't seem that tough and macho. Once we were able to identify that it was a lack of respect and why they were feeling disrespected, they articulated that to one another, and then the other one understood the feelings that their behaviors and words were causing, and that led to a speedy conflict resolution. So learn to become a pro on your feelings. Understand them, communicate them, create a broader portfolio of how you feel, and then communicate those, but do it with honor, always speaking the truth, but doing it with respect. Don't use your feelings to explode at people, but to communicate with people authentically what you're feeling. And watch what that does to help you resolving conflict. So number 5 is learn to share your feelings appropriately. Begin that process.